faith, family, fun. Join the hangout. CFH.
Good morning and welcome to your weekly hangout spot right here on the Catholic Family Hangout, presented by myself, Leanda Tema. This Saturday morning, we just started it off with Happy by Pharrell Williams, and we are definitely happy to be back on the air with you guys. It's been a bit of a break since season 3. We wrapped that up at the end of September, and now obviously it's nearly the end of October, and we're just now introducing season 4 of Catholic Family Hangout. Obviously, if you have been keeping up to date with us, you know that you are listening to Radio Veritas. You can find us on the DSTV channel 870, the Radio Veritas app, or streaming us live on www.radioveritas.co.za. And of course, new season, new family. So we've got to get to know the people that we're going to be having behind the mics this season. And of course, new family member, Giabetswe. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, Leanda. I'm good, thanks. And you?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm so excited to have you on today for season 4. Of course, this is a bit different. We don't have the full family with us, but we'll just be getting into a bit of a discussion with you and I, just getting to know who you are, the face of the family, I suppose. And hopefully, we have a lot of exciting stuff to share with the listeners about the progress that we've made between season 3 and season 4 and all the things that we have in store for them. But before we get into any of that, before I spoil any more secrets, we'll be listening to Terrain, Matthew 5. And welcome back. You are still tuned into the Catholic Family Hangout with the Nkosi family, presented by myself, Leanda Tema. We just played you Matthew 5 by Terrain. And you, of course, are listening to Radio Veritas, the good news for a change. You are listening to us on the DSTV channel 870, the Radio Veritas app, or streaming us live at www.radioveritas.co.za. And as I mentioned previously, this is the time where we do a get to know us. I think it's something that's become synonymous with the first episode of each season, where we really just get to sit down with a brand new family and get to know them a bit more. But this morning, I'm joined by Giabetswe. You guys heard her voice a little bit, but Giabetswe, would you like to maybe give us about a sentence, who you are, maybe your age, and how you're doing this morning?
Hi, everyone that's listening. My name is Gabet Nkosi. I am 19 years old, and I am in university. I'm actually a first year, so yeah, new year, new things, new starts, and yeah, that's about it in a few sentences about who I am.
Lovely. And you did mention that you're in varsity. Would you like to share what you're currently studying and maybe why you chose to study it?
So I'm currently doing film and television and media and writing. I actually chose it because I'm a good critical thinker and I enjoy writing. And I'm also creative. Yeah, my creative thinking is excellent. It's excellent. So the field is actually the correct space for me to engage with that side of myself. Also, while making an income from, I'd say, my talent, I'd be actually using it wisely also, if I'm being correct. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful, especially because you find a lot of young people who are very creative and they always have a bit of fear of going into their passion, and I think it's beautiful to hear that you are doing something that you are passionate about. And previously you did mention that obviously first year, I feel like, I suppose every year everybody's like, oh, new year, new me. But I suppose maybe first year of varsity, you really do feel like it's a new version of you. And even just being here on Radio Veritas is something new for you. And I wanted to know, why exactly did you find Radio Veritas something that you were keen on trying out on?
So the process of Radio Veritas, my mom actually sent me the whole program. And I was actually skeptical about it. And I was busy saying, okay, I'll do it. Then I actually sat down and I read everything. Then it just brought up nostalgia. Because when we were growing up with my mom on Friday mornings, we would clean the house while on Saturday mornings, actually, we'd clean the house while listening to the Catholic Family Hangout. So it means something to younger me that I'm actually older me is contributing to a younger me. Yeah. So that's why actually.
That makes a lot of sense. I think, especially, I love the fact that it's got a bit of nostalgia for you. And I suppose
Yeah.
that's one of the things that everything that we do, I think, especially as creatives, we always tend to put in like our heart and our soul into it. It always has a bit of an emotional tie to it, and I think it's a great way for you to be able to express yourself. And obviously, on this platform specifically, we're expressing ourselves through our religion. And also, this season, we're going to be exploring a little bit more about children and teen livelihoods in different areas, which we'll unpack a little bit further. But why was it important for you to kind of take this opportunity to express yourself as a Catholic, especially on a Catholic radio station?
I think for me, it was very important for like Generation Z, Gen Zs, to be able to have someone who kind of sort of experienced something and to know that they're not alone. Since, for example, myself, I don't have any siblings at all. And the only parts of siblings I'd say I got was actually from listening to the Catholic Family Hangout as I was growing up, having friends at church, and just everyone around me. So that's actually the main reason.
I think that's beautiful. I think it's also something very important. And it's something that we've actually talked about in previous seasons, the role of having the church as a community. And obviously, I suppose being at Radio Veritas is also going to be an extension of that community that you're going to be a part of. But obviously, when you are here at Radio Veritas and you are spending your time with us throughout season 4, every time we start off and we have an objective and we have things that we want to learn and things that we want to grow upon, especially within a religious context. So, what are some things that you're excited about learning through the progress of the show, and what are maybe things that you're unsure about that you're hoping that you'll get clarity on throughout this season?
I am very excited to learn about how all the people will be bringing in their perspectives on our Catholic religion. Because as much as we all Catholics, we all still have different feelings about certain ways the church goes about everything. And hearing someone else's perspective is actually nice because it also challenges my perspective on something. So that is something I'm really looking forward to. And something I'm not sure about. Uh, this one, this is a very difficult one for me because I think it will come along as the show goes. Because right now I don't know anything. I'm not sure about.
Yeah, I think that's always the very interesting thing. I think it's even for me, when I first started off the show, I didn't realize that there were so many things that I didn't know about until, somebody else, like you're saying, somebody else has a different perspective or a different opinion or has questions about things that maybe you've never thought about consciously. And I think that's the most exciting part of the show, is that you get so many different opinions and so many different perspectives that you end up learning things that you never even thought about questioning. And
Yeah.
obviously, we did mention that it is a family, and that's why we are Catholic Family Hangout. We always have a family sort of system with us. And this season ahead, obviously, we have a family that's going to be coming in with you. And I think, without giving too much away, because I think we do want to keep it a surprise who we're going to be having on. Yes, it is a little bit different to not have them on today like we usually would in previous seasons. But I want to know from you, why do you think it's important for you to have that family come on to the show with you to share in this experience and maybe even grow together through this experience?
So I think with my family is the fact that it's it's not a let me say it's not like a normal family, normal in social context as in like your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, etc. With my family, it's my mom, my granny, for example, my cousin, my siblings from church, And I think that family dynamic is so important to show how family is not only blood related, that family is actually deeper than the definition of family. It's all about the people who are actually there to support you, people who are there for little things, little moments, moments you don't realize that they mean so much to you until you sit down and you reflect back and you just think to yourself, these people actually care for me. And that's how the family dynamic comes in.
I
Yeah.
definitely agree there. I think especially because you did mention that you are an only child. And so I suppose with only children, I was an only child for quite a few years, about until I was 9 years old. And it was very lonely time. But I think it's times like that where you gain so much respect and so much love for the people around you who are not necessarily your stereotypical family, like you're saying, like your friends, like peers from church. Um, Even just cousins, it takes on a completely different meaning. And I think that's the most beautiful part of the show is that we see so many different types of families coming together, and it's so beautiful to see that regardless of, your shape, your background, your race, all those things, you can be a family and you can share in this beautiful experience with these people. And I think we've talked quite a bit about like our expectations for the season and some of your excitement. And I think I want to go back to something that you mentioned in like your first sentence, your first breakdown of who you are as a person. And you mentioned that obviously it's a new year, you're trying new things. And I wanted to know, I suppose this is a bit of a strange question because we are at the end of the year nearly. We've got about 2 months left, and I think people at the end of the year start to think, oh, okay, it's November, December, everybody's kind of slowly falling asleep and getting into festive season mode. But obviously, that's the period that you'll be here with us for season 4. And I want to know from you, looking at yourself today, and maybe yourself, say December 31st, it can be within a religious context, it can be within the context of the show, but you today to you, December 31st, what are some of the things that you want to work on and some of the things that you want to grow to say that by the end of this year, this is something that you can say, okay, maybe it wasn't something that you set out as a New Year's resolution, but it's something that you've added on to, I suppose, like your portfolio of new things that you've tried out this year.
Okay. So by December 31st, 2024, things that I'd like to achieve actually is recently I've developed a bad habit of, I don't know where I get this from, of finding little things embarrassing, and I really don't know where I get it from. As in, like, if I'm late running after the bus, I'll be telling myself, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. And now everyone is looking at me. So I'd really like to get that out of my mind because I don't know what it's doing in my mind, first of all. And the second one is I want to go back to confirmation class, and just catch up on what I've missed because I think I missed a lot on confirmation class. It's mostly because of how I went from grade 12, then all of a sudden I'm in a new province, and yeah, and the workload also of varsity. Yo. So I'd advise anyone who's doing confirmation to do it while they're still in high school, because after high school, yeah, trying to do it, it's a bit of a stressor, but it's nothing that can't be done. And I think I also want to do the rosary the whole month because right now, since it's the month of the rosary, I am doing it once a week. It's not even about procrastination. I think it's about also time management for me. So if I can just maybe in November do it the whole month, even though this is the month, I'll be a better person. But yeah, that's what I have. That's actually all I have for now.
I think that's beautiful goals to have, and I think maybe we'll see at the end of the season how far we get with
Yeah.
those goals. But I think it's beautiful that you have ambitions because it's very important to not just kind of go down a mellow road at the end of the year and kind of fizzle out, all that excitement and anticipation that you had in the beginning of the year kind of just fizzles out. So I'm glad that you have goals that you have for the last quarter of the year or last few months of the year at least. And I suppose my last question to you, right, is obviously when you come on here, you have the opportunity to voice out your opinions and voice out the things that you've learned, and hopefully maybe even teach other people, learn with other people in the process. And obviously, as a young person, you have an impact on the community around you. And I want to know, how exactly do you think you're going to impact your community by being on the show?
I think by being on the show, it can also show my community that it's anything is possible. Even those who want to become radio presenters, those who want to do something that they never thought would be possible, it's actually possible for them. It's possible for anyone in that fact. Doesn't matter the age, the place, the context. Just trying something new will most probably get you to do something new.
Definitely agree. And I think we'll obviously, as I mentioned, we'll see throughout the course of the season. But I'm so glad that we have another young person who's inspired, who's interested, who's excited for sharing the good news, for preaching about how great our God is. And obviously, I think hopefully the listeners have learned a little bit more about you. Obviously, there is a whole season ahead to get to know more about you, but we do want to save some of it. We do want to have some secrets, some anticipation for the listeners to tune in. But for now, we'll be listening to How Great Is Our God by Chris Tomlin.
You are listening to the Catholic Family Hangout on Radio Veritas. You are listening to us either on the DSTV channel 870, the Radio Veritas app, or streaming us live at www.radioveritas.co.za. We have just played you How Great Is Our God by Chris Tomlin. And now I will be interviewing Luyanda. I'll be asking her some questions in terms of her faith and how she views life. So, Luyanda, my first question to you is, are you proud to be a Catholic?
I think so. I think obviously I've been a Catholic my whole life, born and bred a Catholic. And I
Yeah.
think some periods of my life, I don't want to say I was ashamed, but I think I didn't know as much. And over the course of being a part of Radio Veritas, I think I've strengthened in my appreciation for my faith. And I think I've also learned to kind of take it from a standpoint of it's a personal thing, as much as we can go to church and we can kind of show our faith publicly. I think I'm proud publicly and privately to be a Catholic. And I think I really do have Radio Veritas to thank for that because this experience has made me grow in my appreciation for my faith.
Oh, yeah, that's lovely. That's actually a very, yeah, that's interesting because I feel like as we grow older, we actually realize that it's not because we were embarrassed to show our faith. I just think it's because of how society is also. But in that fact, we shouldn't also let society get to us. Yeah, I think we shouldn't let society get to us. But okay, my second question is, how how have you been navigating your varsity experience?
I think varsity has been a bit of a strange one for me. I think a lot of the time it is extremely overwhelming, in terms of like the workload, like you mentioned. Also just being surrounded by so many different people, so many different personalities. And I think my biggest thing has just to be kind of focused on my academics. I think, especially because varsity is one of those places where you pick what you're studying and hopefully you're studying something that you enjoy. And so my biggest way of kind of navigating that is just trying to stay focused on what I'm studying, and the things that I enjoy and the things that I'd like to do with my life after varsity. I think that keeps me motivated and I think it keeps me grounded in the times where I feel like I might be losing my head a little bit in the storm of it all. So I think staying focused on your goals is definitely something that helps me.
Okay, okay. The third question, my final question is, in times of difficulties, what is your to-go-to Bible verse?
This is definitely a difficult question for me. Because I don't think I read the Bible that often, and I don't think I tend to pick out specific verses like that. I think I find as much as I'm somebody who enjoys words, I find that I get more peace from just knowing that there is a God out there, and that there is God out there. And I think for me, I try to not be super restrictive with my faith in that sense, where I kind of like psychoanalyze everything and like break it down too much. I think I try to just be in the presence of God, and kind of have that notion of I know that God is there and He's always watching over me. And even just like the thought of having guardian angels, I feel as though I have a million different guardian angels on earth with me, in terms of people that I meet, friends that I have. So I think when that's kind of something that grounds me and makes me feel more invested in my faith, I suppose. I know it's not necessarily the way that a lot of people are. I know a lot of people love having a specific Bible verse that's their favorite, but I think for me, um, I tend to be a little bit more free when it comes to that and not necessarily pick out a specific verse that I think stands out because I think all of them in different chapters of my life, in different days, different scriptures will mean completely different things for me. So it's hard for me to pinpoint one specific one, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much, Leander, for the mini interview. And coming up, we will be discussing segments. But before I go into all that detail, in case in the morning you just wake up and you forget to pray, this song, Amen by Madison Ryan Ward, is your to-go-to song. You are listening to the Catholic Family Hangout on Radio Veritas. You are listening to us either on DSTV channel 870, the Radio Veritas app, or streaming us live at www.radioveritas.co.za. And we have just played you Amen by Madison Ryan Ward.
Yes, Kira, so you did mention we just listened to Amen. And obviously, before that, we got into a little bit of an interview. You asked me a few questions, and you did mention that we will be unpacking a bit further the segments that we are having this season. And of course, we know that Catholic Family Hangout, it's like tried and true Catholic Family Hangout to have our chat with Father. It's something that we've had since like the beginning of the show, first ever season. That's the first thing that we had. It was just, we had Let's Chat with Father, and every single week we have a priest come on, even if it's just an elderly person in our community, in our church environment who is able to answer our questions. And I think Chat with Father has become one of my favorite things because we meet so many different priests who are so graceful in the way that they answer things. And obviously, Gabriel, so whenever we start off new seasons, we always open it up to the family and we say, what would you guys like to have this season? Because you do kind of have the opportunity to customize the season in a sense of the segments that we have. Why was it important for you to keep Let's Chat with Father as something that we continue on with?
Leander, I think it was mostly inspired by my churches, the churches I'm going to church, because as I went back home during the June holidays, I observed the relationship the altar servers have no father. And even the youth, by just greeting Father, hi Father, how are you? Father, this week has been so hard. Then Father will be like, don't worry, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So I think having that little motivation, that little I see you from a priest also it just makes the youth seen in the church. So I still think it's really valuable having an older person of the church to just come up and just have a word or two.
Definitely. And I think even like you're mentioning, having a priest there is always, I suppose, like having a father or having like an older brother, just having a figure there who is a little bit more knowledgeable. And I think that's the interesting part about chapter father is that I suppose it acts as almost like a catechism class in a sense. It's like where you get to just ask everything and anything that's been on your mind about your faith that you didn't have the answers to, and you have somebody who's sitting there giving you their full like dedicated time, no disruptions, just answering you truthfully and honestly. And also I think something that you mentioned that's kind of important is the fact that obviously having older people in the church, it's always good to bridge that gap between us. I think that's something that we find is that a lot of the youth kind of leave the church, or they don't go to church as much as they should be, or they don't engage with the church because they don't know a lot about the church. And I think having a chat with Father is something that's really great. But obviously, this season, as we mentioned before, and we've been mentioning, there's a lot of new things that are happening this season. And one of them is that we're bringing back the children and teen mental health segment. And this we had in our very first season. And I think it was very interesting for us to have. A lot of people did enjoy it. And I think a lot of people reacted positively to it. And in the seasons that passed, we did away with it a little bit because I think with each season, each family has different objectives that they'd like to learn, different things that they'd like to tackle. But we specifically this season discussed that we'd like to have this children and teen mental health segment come back on. So, Gilberto, I wanted to know from you, why did you think it was important for us to have a conversation about this?
So, in terms of mental health, I think there's a lot of aspects to mental health, like the self-care and self-love part of your mental health. It just so that it's actually a reminder of how Christianity itself is a big part of who we are. And if if you come to terms with loving your faith, I think you get a deeper understanding of yourself, even, and you're going to start loving and accepting yourself. You're going to start caring for your body, your mind, and your spirit. And with that, you can also see the role of prayer, seeking guidance and comfort in faith also. And in terms of mental health, also the value of the community. It's so important for the community to support one another, especially in teenagers, tweens, and younger kids' mental journeys. Because I feel like older people have this ideology of saying, you don't have bills that you pay, you don't, which is also another part that doesn't let younger people express themselves freely. Because to be honest, what happens at home also impacts you. For the fact that before you sleep, you even think about it, that's actually a mental strain to you. Instead of thinking about your exam, for example, you're thinking about, oh my gosh, my mom broke her lost plate and she doesn't have money to buy another plate, and which is actually part of one's mental health. Those type of things, the type of things of we see, for example, everyone just started the Catholic. Everyone just started going to Catholic Bible study, for example. Then you missing out, or you just feel like you're not a part of that, which also makes a person feel hurt in a way. And that's also a part of your mental health. Mental health is a very important aspect in our lives because it's part of who you are. When you have a good mental health, you actually start having a good perspective of life. And that, without a good mental health, you're just going to think of negative things. You're going to constantly think of negative things. And our thoughts actually do shape our reality. And the healthier the mental health, the better the life actually. Yeah. So that's why I think we should revisit this mental health topic because it's actually deeper than what we see.
I agree 100%. And I think it even links back to something that you mentioned previously when I asked you about your goals for the rest of the year. And you mentioned how you have like this little voice in your head that tells you like running to catch the bus is embarrassing, you know. And I think we all have moments like that. And it can vary from like something that might be seemingly small like that to these overwhelming thoughts that you mentioned, like you break your mother's plate and you have extreme anxiety about it and extreme guilt. And obviously bring back this mental health segment, it gives people the opportunity to maybe, hopefully for an hour, you know, forget about those issues, really just come hang out with us and learn new stuff, maybe have a laugh, maybe, you know, unpack something that they haven't really been able to talk about before. And I think even then, we giving people the opportunity to learn about different stuff, maybe different ways to deal with their anxiety, different ways to deal with the stress that they're having, you know, even like you were saying, dealing with the feelings of being overwhelmed by school, by friends, by family, you know. Hopefully, we will be able to provide that space for people. And it's something that we always open up our WhatsApp line to people, especially for our Let's Chat with Father. If they have any questions, you can always message us at 074-206-2606. Start your message off with family, followed by your name, or remain anonymous. And this season, as I mentioned previously, it's a bit different, and we've got some exciting stuff that we haven't necessarily spoken about yet on the show. But while everyone is able to contact us on our WhatsApp line, you are also able now to go to our Instagram and our TikTok page at Catholic Family Hangout. So you can go onto our Instagram page, TikTok page, keep up to date with anything Catholic Family Hangout related. And if you have any questions, any comments, maybe any stories you'd like to share, any feedback, anything you'd like to learn, anything you'd like to suggest to us, you can always send us a message on our Instagram, on our TikTok, maybe even just follow, leave any comments. And on top of that as well, this season, if you ever miss out on any of the shows that we host, you can always catch up on them on our Spotify. So every week we'll upload the shows where you guys will be able to kind of continue the hangout, you know? And I think that's the best part about the show and one of the most exciting things about season 4. And I think it's amazing that we have a new family on, and obviously we are slightly nearing the end of today's show. But before we end it off, we are going to be listening to Here I Am, Lord. And then when we come back, we'll just be unpacking how the first show went, and talking over the things that we're most excited about learning in the remainder of the season. And welcome back. You are still tuned into the Catholic Family Hangout on Radio Veritas, the good news for a change. You are listening to us on the DSTV channel 870, the Radio Veritas app, or streaming us live at www.radioveritas.co.za. We just played you Here I Am, Lord. And as I mentioned, we are nearing the end of the show, and this is usually the time where we have a bit of a reflection on the show that we've just presented. So Kiebetswe, first show ever. It's done now. Well, it's almost done. A few more minutes. But I wanted to know, how did you find it? Actually, before we talk about how did you find it, how were you feeling before we went on air?
So before we went on air, I was telling everyone not to call me, not don't call me, because I just felt like it will just bring up nerves. And before, like 10 minutes before we went live, I was actually nervous. I was nervous of how everything was gonna go. But now I'm actually settled and I'm actually excited for our next shows to come.
Definitely. I think you can't even tell that the nerves were there, which is one of the most amazing things. I don't think the listeners or even able to understand just how much, like I know every season we come on and everybody's always like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. And even I was the same way. The first time we went live, I was like, oh, this is so scary. This is so intimidating. But I think you handle yourself with such confidence and with such grace and poise that I'm sure the listeners don't even realize the nerves that you're feeling. And obviously, now we've come slightly to the end of the first show, and you did mention you were feeling nervous. But how did you find the experience of presenting the first show?
It was actually nice. It was nice. It just feels like having a conversation with family or having a conversation with another person. That's how it feels in actually. And that is how it is actually, just having a conversation. But the difference is that now more people are actually going to listen to that conversation, which I think also makes everything a bit nerve-wracking. But yeah.
I think that makes sense, especially because the show is Catholic Family Hangout, and that is always kind of the vibe that we're going for. We're always hoping that it feels like a relaxed space, not only for the listeners, but also for the presenters to just come on and be able to, at the end of a busy week, just be able to come in the morning and have a discussion about your faith and have a discussion about what's going on in our lives. And I think that's something that's so exciting. And I'm so excited for the remainder of season 4 to continue on having these conversations. I feel like obviously an hour, it feels like it's a really long time, but it goes by really quickly. And I think over the course of the season, we'll unpack so much more stuff. And with that, I do want to know from you, what is something that you're most excited to learn throughout your process on Radio Veritas? It can be something that might be about your faith, maybe it's something about your mental health, or maybe it's something that you think you'll learn about yourself. Maybe you'll get over maybe fears that you have, any sort of anxiety that you have throughout the show. Is there anything that you think from the beginning of the season to the end of the season within the context of the show you think is going to change for you?
I think my perspective on the sacrament of confirmation might change. Yeah, I think that specifically because I think I'm really looking forward to the chat with Father, and I feel like once I start engaging in that conversation also, and also hearing how other people view it, that is going to be something I'm definitely looking forward to. And yeah, that's all. I think for the first show, I might not really know what it is specifically. And as the shows go on, I might just click and say, okay, this is something I actually want to learn more about as time goes on.
100%, as you mentioned, there's always, like I mentioned previously, even there's always things that we don't think about. But the minute you get onto air and then one person asks a question about a specific thing, then you're like, oh my gosh, I've never even thought about this before. And then it just brings up, I feel like you get answers to questions and then it brings up so many other questions. And that's the thing that's the most exciting part, is that it brings up stuff that, yes, you might not get answered within this show period right now. You might not be able to get all the answers to every single question, but it gives you things that you think about and you can maybe take out into your daily life, maybe research a bit more, read up on a bit more, and I suppose brush up on our faith and the things that are important to us. But there's so much to learn, and there's so many more people to meet throughout the course of the season, and we're so excited for the next few shows that we're going to be having with the Nkosi family. And next week, obviously, we're so excited that we're going to be having everybody on. So we'll be getting to meet everybody that's going to be a part of the season, which is going to be great. But unfortunately, today we have come to the end of the show. And we'd like to thank the listeners so much for tuning in again every single week and hanging out with us. I'd like to thank Yebeto as well for agreeing to come on to season 4, for wanting to be a part of the Radio Veritas family. Thank you so much for the enthusiasm and just giving yourself up every weekend to come to learn with me, to teach with me as well. And of course, as I mentioned previously, If the listeners have any questions, you can send us a message on 074-206-2606. Start your message off with family, followed by your name, or remain anonymous. And then you can ask any questions that you have for our priests that will come on. A reminder as well that we are now on Instagram and TikTok at Catholic Family Hangout. Keep an eye out as well for any news on our Instagram page, anything Catholic Family Hangout related, you'll be able to find there. And sometime this week, this coming week, this episode of Catholic Family Hangout, first ever episode of season 4, will be available on Spotify for you to be able to stream and listen to at any time that you please if you happen to miss out on any of the shows. But for now, from myself, Leanda, and
Gabby,
have a blessed day ahead and tune in again, same time, same place on your favorite Catholic Family Hangout spot.